Hey, this is Mike McDonald, developer of Revolution Virtual Playspace. Just a reminder that this software is in its alpha stages. There will be bugs, however, it's fully playable in its current state. What I'd like to do is just go over some of the features we've got in the map editor. And the first thing we like to look at is the snapping. All right, so the three different kinds of snapping we have is the basic snapping, which is snaps to each spot where a character can stand. We've got what you're seeing now, which is the fine snapping, or divides each square into about four. It allows for more control. And then if we just disable snapping, you can see here that it's not snapping at all, which gives you the best placement options, but it means things won't line up as easy unless you are using the snapping. Snapping can be used on the land. It can be used on hex terrain pieces. We can also use it on the placeable items available in the game. So here we're going to place a tree stump, and we're going to use our mouse wheel to scroll to rotate it. So you can rotate it around like that. You can hold down the Alt button while rotating the mouse wheel. That goes in an alternate direction. And you can also hold Control and rotate it in the other direction. Now don't worry that you see it going to the ground. We can fix stuff like that later. It's simply just rotating it. All right, so now we've placed the tree stump on the ground where we want it, and we kind of want to mess with our position. So what we would do is right-click the tree stump. We'll get our cool little menu system up here. And you can see this is where we would add our character sheets and conversations and stuff to our miniatures. But what we want to do is go down to the bottom, and we can adjust exactly where this tree stump is positioned. The first number there is how many spaces you want it to move, and it cuts each square into four 4x4 chunks, so you can have more fine adjustments. You can change it to 0.10 to get really fine adjustments, and you'll see we can change it by the X, Y, and Z, so left, right, um, forward and backwards, and up and down. This will allow for placing different objects that kind of don't place properly when you put them down because they're not meant to go where you want them, but we want full freedom, so with that alone you can adjust whatever you need. So moving around in the editor is as easy as using WASD to go forward, backward, left, and right. You can also use the C key to go down and the space bar to go up. When you're moving around, you can also hold in your middle mouse button, or if you don't have a middle mouse button, you can use the F key, and you get free look. You can move around and see in every direction. When placing objects, you can rotate them to make them look different. So one tree can look like many. You can also resize all of the placeables. So we've shrunk the tree down to place it, and now we'll just scale it up. So you can go pretty small and pretty large. Different objects may have some limitations based on their size, but after it's sized and placed, when you load the map, it'll look exactly as you placed it. One thing we've noticed some people using the alpha have been doing lately is building really, really giant dungeons and then not having much decoration in them or not much detail. Now, I believe the first rule of dungeon making is build small and decorate it so it's really gorgeous. Now, you can build a huge dungeon here, that's not an issue, but to keep it interesting, you build it smaller, decorate it, build onto it if you need to, decorate that area, and keep going. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a giant place-based dungeon that's completely empty, which is really boring for players. We've got a ton of content in here to decorate the dungeon to look like many different styles. So if you want, think of a theme, put down a few dungeon tiles, and get decorating. And then after you've done that, you can move on and add more to it. You'll find that your players are enjoying your dungeons much more like that. When building with the tiles, you'll notice some of them don't quite fit, like this one here. Now that's because you may have used the wrong tile to put a door in, or a door frame like this. So what we do is just delete that tile and go into the dungeon tiles, and you'll find a dungeon tile that has kind of like a pillar in the middle of nowhere. What that'll do is shrink down the area available when going through that door frame. You'll see here, it's shrunk the space down to 6, and then you can put the door frame in just fine. So if you find things just aren't lining up, maybe try a different dungeon tile. A note on doors, when you're placing doors, if it's built into the tile like it is here, that means that door is not openable, and it's meant to be um, I guess, a dead end. So if you place the door yourself, it'll open. If you don't place the door, it's built in. You won't be able to open it in the play space. And now that we've got a tiny little, well, I shouldn't say tiny little, but now that we've got a dungeon made out of 6 tiles, which most people would think was tiny, when you place the miniatures, you'll see just how much room you really have. So once you've placed down some tiles, stick a couple miniatures in it and see how they look. You can see here there's tons of space for them to run around and kill monsters and have fun. So if we were to decorate this little area here, you would notice that it really brings the dungeon to life, being only 6 tiles. Now we can continue to add to that and make it bigger, but again, dungeon rule building number one, build a small, decorate, and then continue. All right, so we've given them a little carpet. We'll add some torch pieces to the wall here. I'm holding E so that I get fine snapping. Lets me place them on the wall much easier instead of disappearing into it. Let's see what else we've got here. We'll put a little head on the wall. Now this is meant to go on a stick, so you'll see it goes into the wall a bit while we're placing it, but that's okay. We'll just right click it and move it forward a bit. And there we go. Now it's hanging on the wall. So you can do this with any of the placeables. Now, when you are placing tiles down, please make sure they don't overlap because anything of the same size sharing the same space is going to cause texture flicker. That's when both objects are fighting for their textures to show through. So place the tiles edge to edge. And when you're placing smaller objects like this bench and other stuff, you'll see that you can put it inside other objects and you won't get that same flickering effect because it's actually inside something else and hiding part of it. It's very important. Otherwise, it'll just look cheap with flickering textures everywhere. Thank you for watching. This has been a demonstration of the alpha version of Revolution Virtual Playspace.